Welcome to the Digital Enterprise Society podcast, addressing all aspects of the digital enterprise, inspiring connection without boundaries and creation without limits. Thank you for tuning in. Here are your hosts, Thom Singer and Craig Brown.
Hey there, and welcome back to the Digital Enterprise Society podcast. Thank you so much for always tuning in to this show, or if it's your first time here, for coming along today for what we have designed to be a resource for those who work in and around PLM. The Digital Enterprise Society is a forum for the exchange of ideas surrounding the tools, processes, and practices used across the product lifecycle. To learn more, visit digitalenterprisesociety.org. My name is Thom Singer, and I have the honor to co-host this show every single week with Craig Brown. Craig is an industry veteran and former PLM leader at General Motors. Hey, Craig, how are you today?
I'm pretty good, Thom. I'm enjoying retirement, and I've just passed the 2-year anniversary of retiring from GM, and I think we're going to just say in the future, a guy who still cares about PLM and wants you to know it.
I have the honor of co-hosting this show with Craig Brown, an old retired guy.
There you go.
There we go.
Well, anyways, maybe that won't work. Maybe we'll leave it alone.
Well, Craig and I, every single week, try to bring to all of you who listen, we try to bring to this podcast interesting interviews and other ideas that are going to help all of our listeners enhance and grow their careers. And I think today we're going to do exactly that, because today we have Manuel Loeffler, and he is a member of the Technology Partner Program in the Siemens Industry Software Group, and he is also the new brand ambassador trustee for Siemens to the Digital Enterprise Society. So he's a brand new board member at Digital Enterprise Society, and we are really glad to have him here because he has this interesting view. He looks at the partner program. He looks at the way that apps enhance your iPhone. If you think about it, your iPhone's great. However, it's the apps that let you solve problems and do amazing things. And the way he looks at the partners who work with Siemens, they add to the good and actually help create solutions that add value for all their customers when everyone works together. So it's a triple win. Hey, Manuel, welcome to the Digital Enterprise Society podcast.
Thank you for having me here today, Thom and Craig. I appreciate it.
Well, we're looking forward to this conversation. So can you tell us a little bit about your background? Where did you start and how did you get to where you are today?
Well, looking at my background, I think I'm one of those people that kind of grew in Siemens. So back in my time in college, I did a couple of internships within Siemens. And then after college, a logical next step was to see if I could further that experience. So I did a little bit more there, did some internships in Pennsylvania, and I did one in Singapore. And then when it came to looking for my first full-time real job, if you will, Siemens was right there for me, waiting with some great offers. And I'm happy to say that put me back in Texas with Siemens Industry Software. And I've been with them since 2013 as part of the strategy team and specifically the Software Technology Partner Program.
Whereabouts in Texas are you?
Greater Dallas area, typically the Plano office, which I think some of your listeners might be familiar with. Of course, in the current pandemic situation, I'm a little bit further north in my home office in Little Elm.
I live in Austin, so I always like it when we have fellow Texans here on the podcast.
Yeah, you guys know how to... Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, Manuel.
I was going to say, you know what they say. I wasn't born in Texas, but I got here as fast as I could.
As quick as I could, man. That's right.
I'm not going to say a thing about managing cold weather. I'm just going to move on.
We've moved on. That was weeks ago, Craig.
That's true. It was weeks ago. Anyways, hey, Manuel, welcome to our podcast. And there's a little history with your role that you serve on the partner program and the former PLM world. There was a gentleman named Matt Green who is no longer with Siemens for his own reasons. He stayed in Western Michigan and is working for the healthcare industry, I think. But Matt and I used to hang out together talking about, the interests of a car company, the interest of, Unigraphics as it became part of Siemens. And, you're one of those guys like Stefan, where you're a part of Siemens long before you were part of Digital Industries. And so I think it's just fascinating to find you guys. And Matt and I first met, it's interesting. We were at a conference at Marquette, and it was listening to one of your partners, which at the time was LMS, and then LMS became part of the family a few years later. And it was a really interesting discussion. Now, you and I are in very different generations. We didn't tell the audience how young you are, but you're a lot younger than I am. But the point I wanted to make was we got into this debate, and I want your perspective on this. We got into this debate about why are we having trouble finding why do we as industry have to spend so many years training people on digital technologies? And the answer the professors gave, well, the real problem is you parents aren't sending us very good fodder to make really good engineers out of. So the problem is the parents. And I was surprised at the way the room just erupted. And this is like over a decade ago. Anyways, you remind me a lot of Matt, because Matt sat there just watching this phenomena occur between professors, parents, and industry. And Matt and I were on this panel together. He was the Siemens guy or the graphics guy, and I was the GM guy, and we had like 3 other people on there. So it's interesting. So what I want you to answer is, so did you, in your experiences, your internships and so on, did you feel like you were prepared for this digital industry world? I mean, you seem really comfortable with it. Or is it just because you grew up in a Siemens family, as you mentioned?
I think there's several sides to this story. I think we've certainly seen more and more of a digital transformation overtake not just this industry, but all industries across the board. And if I'm just thinking back to your early example about the professors pointing fingers here, and I wouldn't want to point fingers myself, but I think this is the digital transformation is something that we knew has been coming for a long time, that we as industry members have been actively trying to push. But here and there, we might have not quite reached the goals that we were looking for in adoption when it comes to adoption.
See, what we were contending, Matt and I and a couple others, was that it wasn't so much the younger generation doesn't want to be digital, quite the opposite. You guys are ahead of all of us, right? It was rather the ability to teach these fundamental things in engineering disciplines. And I realize you have a different background, but my point is it was the professors' inability to embrace digital technologies, which was the real problem. Now, again, this was a decade ago, right? Did you sense that as you pursued your degree? Were they resistant to things like, iPhones came out as you were graduating, but things like that? I mean, or did you have professors that embraced digital technologies and saw the wisdom of how they should embrace it and move on, right?
I certainly had some professors who were lauding the beginning of the fully digital age. And then I had some, on the other hand, that were a little sad that we're moving away from traditional ways of doing things, for lack of a better explanation. So you'll have... They were sad, or
were they sad, or were they just resisting change?
It might have been that. It might have been resisting change. I mean, we all know that change is inevitable, but it's also painful. And,
that one thing you can take away from this is change is not only inevitable, but it's what the competitors do really well, right? The guys that succeed, whatever kind of company or industry you're in, are the ones that stay on top of that. And I think the group that you're in, this partner program, I think that's a really good way of making sure that a user of the tools, benefits from those other partnerships. It may not be mainstream yet, but there may be an application, the way you described it, that fills a niche, right? I mean, in car business, lots of people are going to electric vehicles, and a lot of us are talking about what are the implications of that. And some of the implications are huge changes, like we might not need an internal combustion engine anymore. I mean, that's pretty dramatic. There's lots of people that have developed skills around rotating machinery with pistons flying around, and they won't need that anymore, or they won't need it in 10 years. But anyway, so your partnership program, so you've been doing this for a couple of years. What surprised you the most? What did you not expect that happened or is happening?
So one of the things I didn't quite expect is how many different ways partners out there interact with Siemens software and Siemens products. And in particular, this is one of my favorite things that I love about being part of the partner program. I get to see how partners and customers in the real world actually utilize our solutions, how they interact with other players in the industry, and really also how they keep pushing the envelope and driving change and innovation. So I think from a Siemens perspective, we love it because it helps us stay on top of what our customers need and want. We can work together with partners to find the exact solution that they might need to fit the problem that they're trying to solve. Mm-hmm. And of course, we keep our finger on the pulse of the industry and see where things are going.
Yeah, and I think, when Siemens acquired Unigraphics and all the other vendors who we could talk about for hours, what was interesting to me was this overall strategy of, no kidding, we need everything to do not only digital product development, but enable embedded computers inside of all those products, whether they're trains or windmills or turbines or car companies or aircraft companies or whatever. And so it's a quite impressive suite these days. And there'll probably be more gaps as more technology comes along, but you'll find a partner, and then eventually the partnership could get deeper, right? I mean, some partners have in fact turned into acquisitions, and everybody would love to ask you guys, what are you going to acquire next? But I'm pretty sure you can't answer that. So I won't.
That is correct.
Yeah, but to those in the audience who are surprised by some of that, you just should watch every quarter. You should ask what's been added to the suite of solutions, because it is pretty impressive. So in the Digital Enterprise Society, which is the former PLM world, I think part of what we are trying to do is a similar thing, right? We're trying to build a partner program, and I think your passion and your interest in that could help. And so this is something Matt Green, we talked a lot about. There's another lady out there who's no longer with the organization, but Katie was with us. I hope Katie's listening. And Katie and Matt and I would have this exact debate. How do we improve the awareness of the Digital Enterprise Society? What partners are there? Are they just people like Siemens, or are they other partners like? There's consulting companies. There's purely training companies. They train on PLM, for instance. And then there's all of the users. One of the things that made PLM World so good was all the user interactions. There's subcommittees and other things. And so I know you're new to the assignment of being a trustee, and I don't really want to put you on the spot. On the other hand, you're in a partner program at Siemens. Can you imagine what a partner program for DES might become?
Yeah, I think Thom actually put it perfectly earlier. He said that the Digital Enterprise Society aims at being a forum for the exchange of ideas of companies across the digital enterprise space. And I think that succinctly puts together this idea that the DES can connect players from whether that's small startups, consultancy companies, small, medium-sized business to, large global corporations. I mean, everyone is facing the demands of the digital transformation right now. Mm-hmm. And we're going to see this even more going forward, and exchanging these ideas and putting together a playbook, if you will, I think is really where we can see value in building a partner program, enabling one another and defining how partners can, or companies, I should say, can play efficiently together moving forward.
I would love you guys to have a forum around digitization. What does it mean? I was in a discussion, something else I do part-time, and I asked this particular company this what I thought was really straightforward question. I said, look, do you mean, they were talking about digitization, and I said, do you mean removing paper? Do you mean filling out forms electronically, like Word or Excel or whatever? Or do you mean that all of the forms, the views of data are coming from a central database and so on? And I was shocked. This is a very good company, by the way, the products they built. I was shocked. They said, we're still removing paper. So do you have advice for such people that when they hear the word digitization, a lot of them, they're not thinking the same thing, right? Part of it depends on where they are in their journey. And so could you imagine, our current challenges with the vaccine rollout, doing it all by paper? I mean, there's already enough fallacies, right? but this company just floored me on what they said. They said they're still trying to remove paper, and even Excel and Word, frankly, everybody, that's a form of paper, right? It's just electronic paper. But some people think that's what digitization is, just get rid of hard paper and use forms. Anyways, you and I were talking about this pandemic thing and vaccination, and you shared with me how easy it was that you recently got your vaccine. And I want you to describe to people how that went, and also how much it was digital.
Mm-hmm. So I was actually astonished at how efficient and how digital this whole process happened. I signed up a couple of months ago on the website of my local county for a wait list to get the coronavirus vaccine whenever I would become eligible to do so. And I didn't really think I would hear from them anytime soon. I mean, we have all these preconceived notions about government and bureaucracy and what have you. But yeah, I think right away I got an email confirming that, hey, you're on the list. You have, I want to say, some 200,000 people ahead of you. But if anything moves along sooner, we will get in touch with you. And then just a few weeks later, I got another message saying, are you still interested, or have you already received your first shot? And I, of course, clicked on, I'm definitely still interested. And no, I have not had my first shot. And I got a text message right away saying, okay, you've been booked for this appointment on this date and time. Please show up and make sure you have your ID and this QR code ready.
So that's cool. That was like automation of scheduling, right? Your interest was confirmed, and immediately it gave you a slot. That does not sound like the problems I'm reading about in the newspaper, but continue. Then what happened?
After that, I drove up to the Texas Motor Speedway, which is where my location was.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So that's like a 2-mile track. So that's okay. Yeah, that's large. Okay.
So even driving up, they already had signage there saying, go this way for your appointment and vaccine by appointment only. As you got closer, they had signs telling you to dial into a certain radio station that was providing information about have your ID ready, have your QR code ready. And then after that, it was pure efficiency. I roll up to the first tent. They scan my ID and QR code and confirm that those two match. Next tent, I hand in a medical questionnaire that they had me fill out, driving the, couple of feet in between tents. And by the third tent, I rolled down my window, opened my door, and got my shot. And that was it. I think I was done in under 15 minutes, and then just had to sit there for 15 minutes or so, make sure I didn't have any adverse effects. But I was pleasantly surprised by how efficient that was done, especially with the automation and painlessness of all the digitization.
Yeah. Well, and you made a funny comment the other day too, an American culture, right? Because you did it all from your car. You didn't even have to get out of your car, right? Isn't that great?
Right. It really doesn't get much more convenient than that.
Well, so for the audience, just imagine all the things that had to work. They were computer-based, so a form of digitization. And the pieces of the puzzle that you mentioned, I've been noticing similar experiences, the efficiency at scheduling and getting it. And, something's happened in the past month where all of a sudden, all of us are picking up the vaccines despite our different age groups. And I was talking to a relative this week, and they weren't sure how soon. Actually, I'm one of the folks that got it in the last week. And she was happy about that. And then she said, I don't know when we're going to get it. And she texted me back not 30 minutes later that, hey, she got scheduled and, later this week. So, I'm sitting here going, wow, that's pretty good machine learning. It's watching my text messages and conversations and scheduling people. Wow, it's probably not that good. But anyways, that's interesting. So when we talk about digitization, it's just like that. It's finding a flow of things that have to happen and making them as automated as you can. But you still have to have humans. A human gave you a shot. Probably a human was monitoring the scheduling and the flow of traffic in and out of the Texas Motor Speedway, right? And so I think when people talk digitization, I think it works a lot better if we talk about examples. And automating workflow is one of the key examples, even workflow that goes across many different job assignments. And I think we as a society, we could help with that. We could help teach people what does digitization really means. Well, it means getting rid of the monotonous administration and focusing on engineering or validation or whatever your job function is. So it's interesting. So the other thing you and I chatted about in our pre-session was this notion of activities within Siemens that helped you, get comfortable in your career and expand your career. You mentioned this term, employee resource groups. Can you tell me, why, what they are, and then how did they benefit you?
Right, certainly. So at Siemens, we believe that there is value in empowering employees to take ownership of their careers and the environment that we work in. And part of that is the employee resource groups. For example, I'm part of what we call the Next Employee Resource Group, which focuses on early career professionals as well as people who are new to Siemens, and also anyone who would like to invest into themselves to advance their personal and professional skill set. And I think
so when you say next, are you a customer or are you a teacher? I'm just curious. Which one are you, or are you both?
So in this context, I think as an employee of Siemens, you step into a role where you're part of a collegial framework, if you will, where we support one another, we enable one another, and you can be both a student and a teacher. Really, we aim to learn from one another. We have cross-functional sessions where you learn about the different things that other people in your organization do. And of course, you also get to teach other people about things you do that they might not have known before.
So some of that is exactly what we used to do in PLM World. A few years ago. I mean, that's how I learned about PLM World, was through a working group. It was a working group of people focused on the application Team Center and NX in big companies. We were all big companies. That was what's common about us. We weren't the same industry, but we were all big, right? And so I couldn't emphasize more, and we've talked about that in other sessions with guests here about, get out there, reach out, be a part of a resource group, as you guys call it, and be both a teacher and a learner, right? There's opportunities there that can help. So I wanted to thank you personally for becoming a trustee. You don't know Matt. Even Stefan doesn't know Matt, but you will do fine. Trust me, as Matt Green's replacement. Matt was on the board a few years before he left Siemens. And this idea, this understanding of the marketing side of a brand, what to do with a brand and how to make the brand more understandable, I think it's a really important skill that you're bringing. And it's important that Digital Enterprise Society and you guys on the trustees, you figure out how to make that happen. And I think start with digital enterprise. What does that mean to people? You'd be surprised how varied the answers are. Maybe it's just getting rid of paper, believe it or not, even at a big successful company. It could be a lot more. It could be the workflow streamlining, like your example with the vaccine. So with that, thank you. Thom, back to you.
Awesome. Well, I don't like to let our guests go without having them share some career advice for our listeners, because so many of the people who are listening are trying to figure out sort of their career path, how to be successful. So you've spent your whole career with one company. However, you've been very successful and you're kind of young. So what advice do you have for people who want to sort of fast track their career and move up the ladder? What are some things people can do in this world?
So I think this kind of goes back a little bit to the employee resource groups we had mentioned before. At the core, it never hurts to build your own network, really exchange ideas with anyone you become across, empower other employees where you can, and really learn as much as you can to become more efficient. At least you're going to figure out who you can come to solve a problem. And at best, they might just put you on the task or on track for the next step in your career.
So you bring up the fact that you got to build your own network. That's something Craig and I hear from a lot of the guests on the show, is that it's so important in this sort of intertwined world, right, of PLM. I mean, there's so many different partners. There's so many different providers that really having that network kind of beyond your own department. Some people get very myopic and just know people who work on their team. So how do you go about building that network?
Once again, I think I've really been lucky with working for Siemens and them trying to actively empower their employees and putting together resource groups like that where you have that network to fall back on. But at the end of the day, I think it can be as easy as just talking to somebody outside of your immediate team, outside of your immediate functional group. And if anyone goes to the trouble of putting together a happy hour of sorts where you can actually meet people outside of their day-to-day grind, I think that is another great opportunity to actually walk up to somebody and strike up a conversation. And another thing I've noticed is, I think we haven't mentioned this before, but I'm actually originally from Germany, born and raised. So I think I have a little bit of an insight into how German and American culture might differ. But certainly here in the US, I feel it is much easier for somebody to walk up even to a high-level executive and engage them in conversation and get their opinion and insights into things. And I think those are the kind of resources that certainly you should leverage if you can, because there's a lot of people out there that you can learn from.
I think if I could chime in for just a second, Manuel, the companies that offer these programs, these cross-functional groups. So if you're out there listening and you are looking for work, to me, this ought to be one of the criteria. When I joined General Motors in my mid-career, this was one of the reasons I joined them was this broader ability to stay within a company and try different things or the networking opportunities. So does the company actively support it, which could just mean provide time, right? Not just the resources, meaning the network, but also the time to go do it. And, at least, my experience is that happened. And then the other side of that is these senior leaders, the leaders that will let you talk to them, right? A lot of different places in the world are different. It's true. The successful American companies, most leaders are approachable, at least of public companies. The leaders are very approachable. Well, that's a good thing. So thanks again for joining us. It's very interesting to conversation.
Yep, Matt.
My pleasure.
Manuel Loeffler, thank you so much for being on the Digital Enterprise Society. And thank you to everybody who tuned in and listened. Please come back every single week because we're going to bring you more thoughts, ideas, and information in and around product lifecycle management. The Digital Enterprise Society is the place for the exchange of ideas around digital manufacturing tools. Check us out at digitalenterprisesociety.org.
You've been listening to the Digital Enterprise Society podcast. Learn more about what you've heard here today at digitalenterprisesociety.org. Join us again next week for more connection without boundaries and creation without limits.